I don't know. I don't think it's premature to say NVIDIA reports August 28th, and we just went through the eco data and the impact of central banks. That's a big calendar item for everyone that watches this market. Good morning.
Ed, good to see you. Yes, I mean, after the first wave of big tech, there isn't an earnings report that's more in the throes of everyone's hearts right now than what's going to happen with NVIDIA. The AI bubble bears, as I like to call them, are looking for something to break. The announcement of some delays on Blackwell got a lot of excitement last week, but maybe was muted a little bit by everything that went on with the macroeconomy, Ed. And then on the other side of it, the bulls, they're listening to all these CapEx reports. They're listening to what Zuck had to say, Sundar, Satya, all of these companies intending to spend big on CapEx. And that tends to be a win for NVIDIA. So if you're looking at what's going on, you're saying AI is booming on the CapEx side, on the investment and the infrastructure side. But the bears, Ed, the bears are saying, well, how is that turning into practical use in the market? And that's created a big gulf.
Okay, let's dwell on that big gulf, therefore. Is it that if you're going to buy some of the volatility that we've seen of late, buy into some of the lower price points, you do it with what's already won, the NVIDIAs? You don't do it with a breadth that we might see of AI working in software and the like?
Yeah, Caroline, I like to talk about this ingestion period that is going on with AI. It isn't going to happen over the next quarter or two, where AI is going to be democratized and implemented into every enterprise. We're seeing small wins. We saw Palantir had a great quarter. We saw ServiceNow showed some really resilient results against some of the people betting against software. But we're also waiting to see strength from companies like SAP, Oracle, IBM looked okay. These are the companies that are doing the implementations of AI. But if you're looking at this big spend, this predictable big spend that's going on, all the big tech, mega tech companies are basically saying, we don't want to be the Blockbuster, the BlackBerry of the AI era. We're going to spend in advance. Zuck did a perfect job on his earnings call and nobody flinched. Some of the other calls were met with a little bit more resistance because the justification of CapEx wasn't as clear to the investors.
The justification also of a fundamental change in policy from the Federal Reserve. How much does the broader macro backdrop paint a picture for whether you should be buying tech at the moment, Dan?
You and I have had this discussion a few times on this show, Caroline, and I've said tech is incredibly deflationary. It's going to enable companies to do more with less resources. We've seen the job numbers in San Francisco go back to the pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing cuts. We've heard about Cisco, Dell, major cuts over the past few weeks. And this has been necessary, but also these companies, the whisper conversations I'm having with CEOs is they believe AI will enable a prune to grow strategy. They can make some cuts in their overhead, in their cost, and in their human capital in order to create scale and create growth. So that is the opportunity. At the same time, we are still waiting to see, is the macro okay? You look at some of these credit numbers, you look at some of the loan default numbers, you look at some of the consumer confidence numbers, the market isn't that strong despite that we're not in a recession. So we're balancing these couple of things, but tech is ultimately deflationary and ends up being a good bet for investors, especially long investors.
Dan, in tabulating headwinds and tailwinds, in which column does regulation sit for AI?
It's a great one. I believe it is a headwind, but Ed, I do believe, like every technological megatrend that we've had, regulators will always be playing catch up. They're going to be playing defense. I've had a number of conversations about what NVIDIA's stature is in relation to regulation. We're hearing some of the concerns across Europe, in the US, probes. Of course, we saw what happened with Google last week. The regulators want the markets to understand that they're going to play a role, but at the same time, the US is very steadfast to stay in the lead on innovation. With that in mind, I think M&A is the area where regulators will be the most involved. They're going to make it difficult for these mega cap companies, the Microsofts, the Googles, now NVIDIAs, Amazons, to make acquisitions. We saw Microsoft sort of doing an interesting move on one of their most recent acquisitions. And that is going to play into this. They're going to be playing the cat and mouse game, but the regulators are going to have a really hard time at keeping up.